Yes, people, welcome back to West Ham Unofficial. I hope you are all well. You join us for a Christmas special. Yes, it's nearly Christmas. Who knew? And we are here for a little bit of a Q&A tonight. So get involved throughout the show in the chat. I hope you are all well. I'm joined by a couple of very, very good guests, if I do say so myself. Firstly, if you haven't been on the channel before, you will know him. Jimmy Quinn, firstly, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Jake.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And joining us for the first time, Steve Jones. Jonah, how are you?
All good, Jake. All good, mate. Hope you're well.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Hope you are all well. Hello to everybody watching in the chat. There's no hatch tonight, Luke. We couldn't quite afford that, but we are here, and don't worry about that. Right then, so we're gonna have just a bit of a general chat about your playing careers, boys, and then a little bit just to kind of finish off what we talked about before going on air with the current West Ham situation, how we are all feeling about it. But let's start off with Steve. I'll start with you. West Ham, how did it all come about with you moving to the club then, mate?
It took quite a little while, really. There was a few clubs watching me. I was at Billericay. I'd scored a lot of goals, 70-odd goals in 50 games. And I think I scored 4 goals against West Ham in a pre-season game, and we won 5-4. And I think from that moment, I think Harry Redknapp and Frank Lampard Senior and Billy Bonds then said, we should be signing him, really, because he's looking like he can score goals. So, and that was it, really. Obviously, I'd been to the club. I'd supported the club. I'd been to a lot of games beforehand, but it was obviously very nice to sign for the club you supported.
Yeah. Obviously, growing up as a West Ham fan, like all of us, that must have been extra special to you. You know, growing up, going to Upton Park and then playing there.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable. Really, the crazy thing was, I think on a Tuesday night, I played. Billericay played Wembley away, the non-league team, obviously not Wembley Stadium, and we lost 2-0, and I had a really bad game. But Frank, as I was walking off, Frank Lampard Senior just give me a little nod and sort of like shook his shoulders if to say I'll be signing. I signed on the Thursday and was sub on the Saturday. You know, I mean, I never got on, but it was like amazing that I'd gone from playing for Billericay on a Tuesday in front of like 50 odd people, and then being sub for West Ham at Upton Park on the Saturday.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, Jimmy, as I'm sure the lifelong West Ham fan you were before joining the club, just reminding people watching how your sort of transfer to the club all came about as well.
Well, I was at Bradford City, and we played West Ham in a league game. It was middle of December. Middle of December, and I scored the winning goal, and I think it was the 91st minute against West Ham. It was a cross coming from the right, flicked on. I just volleyed it straight in the corner, and the place erupted. You know, obviously West Ham were the biggest team in our league at the time, so to get the winner and stuff. And then it was about 2 weeks after that, Terry Yorth, the Bradford manager, pulled me and he said, Lou McCarry wants to speak to you. And I'd already played for Lou at Swindon, so I knew all about Lou. And next thing, Lou was on the phone. But I did say to Terry Yorth, I said, I'm happy at Bradford. I'm not really that fussed about moving, you know, because I'd moved from Swindon to Leicester and then from Leicester to Bradford. And you move in house all the time. And I had kids and whatever. And it was a bit of I thought, oh, Christ, here we go again, moving to London, and which was obviously a bigger thing altogether, you know, moving to London with all the traffic and everything. You know, Steve's used to it because he's from down that way. But the next thing was Lou was on the phone and he said, listen, I want you to come down and score some goals for us. We need somebody else and blah, blah. And I told him, I said, I'm pretty happy here, Lou, and whatever. So the next thing was I had a call off Terry Yorth, and he said that, listen, Jim, he said, get yourself down to West Ham. It's a great club. He said he had fallen out with the chairman, a fella called Jack Tordoff, big car franchise bloke, and he said he wouldn't be there too long, couple of weeks before he left. So when he said that, I spoke to Lou, went down, had a chat with Lou, and ended up signing with. And the two players that signed at the same time were Ian Bishop and Trevor Morley. So they signed three good players, and for the January window, obviously. Yeah, so yeah, that's how it came about. I scored the winner against West Ham, and Lou must have seen enough in that game to think that I'd do okay.
Oh, fair enough. Very good, indeed. Just moving on. Then, obviously, both strikers yourselves, and favourite goals is one thing that I definitely wanted to mention. It could be at West Ham or elsewhere. Jonah, I'll start with you. Have you got a favourite goal at West Ham?
I've got a favourite goal at West Ham. Yes, scoring the first goal away to Spurs. No, saying that, the first goal, we took the lead at Upton Park 2-1 against Norwich City. I think we drew 3-3 on the night. That's when Norwich City, I think, ended up finished third in the Premiership. And we had it was a really good game. I think Chris Sutton scored twice, Rule Fox. I scored, Martin Allen and Trevor Morley. But that was electric that night. It was one of the first Monday night Sky games. And the atmosphere at Upton Park was really unbelievable. And we ended up drawing 3-3. I set Trevor up in the probably the 92nd minute. He only just come on. He'd not touched the ball until he scored. So that was quite nice as well. And obviously scoring at Spurs in a 4-1 win was quite nice.
Doesn't get much better than that, especially being a West Ham fan, scoring in a thumping against Spurs, does it, to be honest?
Not really away from home, because it didn't really happen too much to him, really. And that game as well, it could have probably been 6 or 7. We absolutely, most of their fans had left after 60 minutes.
Battered them, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it was one of them rare occasions where it was like Jim said, we battered them.
Very good, very good. Jimmy, favourite goals, West Ham, non-West Ham? What are you feeling?
Favourite goal was we played Sheffield United at home on a midweek game. The midweek, Steve will tell you, the midweek games are always the best, under the lights. And they were doing quite well at the time and had some decent players. But on the night, I ended up getting a hat trick. Now I scored 2, but the third one, Ian Bishop had a shot and it's come off my backside and went in. That wasn't my favourite goal. My favourite goal was the second goal in the game, where Stuart Slater beat about 4 or 5 players, and he squared it to me, and I just come in the edge of the box and I done me to shoot, and the keeper and 2 of their defenders went one way, and I just side-footed it in the corner. So that was a good goal. But probably the best goal I scored was against my old club at Swindon. I scored, it was a 2-2 draw, and that was the game that we all turned up for the match, and Lou Macari wasn't there. He had this thing going on, but we didn't know, obviously, the players, but this thing going on with, he had a court case or something he had to attend, and he didn't turn up for that game. But I was going back to my old club that I started my career at. So Steve will tell you, when you play against your old clubs, it's a big thing. You wanna like play well, and if you can manage to get a goal along the way, it's even better. But the second goal I scored there was a header that I was like falling backwards. It was knocked across the box to me, and I headed it back across into the far corner. And it beat Fraser Digby. Now Fraser Digby was like 6'4", so he was a big unit, and to place the header as well as it did was even better. But certainly the games at Upton Park during the week, there was a fantastic atmosphere, and I managed to score a few goals in those matches. There was just something exciting about the matches that all the players look forward to.
Yeah. Just picking off on what one thing Jimmy said there, Jonah, and it was almost about scoring against opposition. Are you a fan of players not celebrating, or would you prefer to see players celebrate when they score against their former club? Have you got just a personal preference with that? Would you have celebrated? Did you celebrate?
We played West Ham pre-season when I went to Bournemouth, and I scored I remember it really well past Ludo. I scored a 30-yarder top corner. It was only pre-season, I know that, but they still they were still good games. But I did celebrate it, and I scored the second in the second half. We drew 2-2. I think once I'd gone to Bournemouth, they must have done an agreement that Bournemouth play West Ham in pre-season, and we ended up drawing 2-2, and I scored both goals. So, and I did celebrate. And mate, I'm a big one for celebrating. As long as you don't milk it and go to the other fans and celebrate with your fans who you're playing for at the time, I don't think it's a problem. A goal's a goal. And when you score a goal like Jimmy scored thousands, you'll know that it's a different feeling when you score a goal. There's no feeling like it, really.
Yeah. Jimmy, have you got a preference for that? Would you prefer to celebrate?
Yeah, I wasn't there. Steve was better at that than me. I wasn't one to sort of celebrate too much, but you always want to score against your old clubs. And I remember that Swindon game. My best mate Roger Riggs, who sat in the stand, and he said the fans were giving me pelters. You know, and I'd played for the club, but I'd been back there 3 times and played so many games and scored a lot of goals from whatever, and they were absolutely hammering me in the stand. Of course, and I popped up and scored 2 in the match. And I wasn't one to sort of run about and all that. I probably might have just put my hand up and ran back to the halfway line. But it's always nice scoring against your old club, no matter who it is, you know.
Yeah, but
fair enough.
You scored too many, that's why. You got bored.
Yeah.
So is it more of a case of, the more prolific you got, the more bored you got, Jimmy, and it was just as good for you, Jonah, or not?
Yeah, I don't know, really. It depends in the moment as well, I think. I probably because I started the game very late and weren't a pro till 22, the excitement for me was just non-stop. But where Jim had his whole career from it and from when he was young as well, you know, so I broke quite late into the game, so it was a little bit different, really. And obviously, look at the amount of goals Jimmy scored, incredible amount in lower league and in the top league as well. So, you know what I mean? But I was always excitable when I scored.
Yeah, some people are really good at celebrating. I wasn't one of them, you know. I was just. You're always worried about you. As soon as you've hit the back of the net, you're always worried about when your next goal's going to come. So you think, well, I better not celebrate too much because if we go 3 or 4 games without scoring, the fans are going to hammer me, you know. So you don't want to. Yeah, some people have got great at celebrating them. I wasn't one of them. I probably should have enjoyed myself a bit more, to be honest with you. But I was always a little bit probably too serious at the time, you know.
Do you know when you scored, didn't you ever want to run over and get a big?
I was just thinking about the bonus that we got.
Very wise.
I started at Swin. I was on like 110 quid a week, you know. So getting appearance money and getting a goal bonus and all that, it was a big thing for me in them days, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
Very good, very good. One thing you did allude to a couple of times there, Jimmy, was the sort of atmosphere at Upton Park, of course, very famous down the years. Was that really, you know, at West Ham specifically, or you know, any other club you were at with your career? Would you say?
I mean, I've played for some good clubs and whatever, and I'm sure Steve has, but the atmosphere at the West Ham games is something else, you know. But it's not just that. You know, when you put a West Ham shirt on, first thing you think about, for what I did, I'm sure Steve's the same, you think about the other players that have worn that shirt, the Bobby Moores and the Jeff Hurst and stuff, and you think, Christ, you know, here I am in West Ham's first team, playing in, you know, for West Ham United, and all these great world-class players that have played here and done that, and you only think about trying to justify wearing the shirt and doing as best you can. I'm sure Steve will reiterate that, but there's a lot of pressure, more pressure than probably playing for any other club. I played for 8 or 9 different clubs, but West Ham was the one. You know, I remember my first game. I didn't play particularly well. It was against Barnsley, I think, but it was at Upton Park, New Year's Day, and all I could think about was the players that played before me and wore that shirt before me.
Mm. Yeah. Steve, anything to add to that, sort of with the atmosphere side of things? Did it spur you on a bit more?
No, I think Jimmy said it right, really. I mean, when I probably signed for West Ham, I probably was never at that stage a championship or a top flight centre forward. But all I kept thinking was, as long as I work until I can hardly walk again, then nobody can really say nothing. You know, if you try that hard. And I think West Ham fans know that. You know, I mean, I had many a poor game in the 20 games I played when I started there. But I think because I give 100% effort. And once again, I was late playing. It took me till I was 24, 25 before I was really up to scratch with a pro footballer, you know, because I'd come from non-league at that age. But yeah, exactly. When the likes of Bobby Moore and Jeff Hurst and Billy Bonds and Frank Lampard Senior, you can go on and on about all the great players you've had in the past. When they've played in that shirt, you want to justify that you've done well enough to being able to put that shirt on, which is quite hard. It can be definitely hard, and a lot of players have suffered over the past up to the park with that burden. You know, I mean, I only had 20 games at Upton Park and didn't have 2 or 3 consecutive seasons where I got pinned out like that. But it could be a big burden on a lot of players playing for West Ham. Definitely, there's a lot of players that have failed. Saying that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just take some of the comments and see what you guys are saying. Luke says, Jimmy was my rebound love after TC left. You gonna take that, Jimmy? Is that good enough?
Yeah. Right?
Very good. Are you gonna take that? Is that good enough for you?
Oh yeah, that'll do. Yeah. Good comment. Different. Yeah.
There we go. Luke says, Jimmy must have won all games of headers and volleys.
Oh yes, yeah. I was good at that. Heads and volley. We used to play that all the time at a couple of Reading and Swindon when I was there, and I was always quite good at that. Yeah.
Jonah, I'll come to you first with this one. Who's the best player you played with at West Ham?
The best player I played with really has got to be Paolo Futre, even though when he came to West Ham, his career was virtually over and his knees were shot to pieces. He was European Footballer of the Year 2 years on the bands, I think. So, and obviously he was nicknamed the European Maradona at the time. So he's got to be the best player I ever played with, really. But other than that, at West Ham, I would probably say Billy Bonds, definitely. And then I'd probably say Bish.
Yeah, fair enough. Jimmy, best player you played with West Ham?
Yeah, but I've been asked this quite a lot, and you know, considering I played international football for 11 years with some very good players, best player I played pound for pound was Julian Dix. He could play anywhere in the park, Julian, and yeah, he was a bit of a screwball and whatever, but what a footballer. He hated training. He didn't want to train. He didn't want to do anything. He didn't want to conform to any tactics or anything else. He was just a natural footballer with a lot of talent and the will to win, second to none. Yeah, I played with a lot of good players, but Dixie was absolutely brilliant. He was 2-footed. He was good in the air. You could literally put him anywhere in the team. And there's not a lot of players you can say that about. He could even go and goal. I think he did once when I was there. But yeah, he had a bit of a reputation, and he should have played for England and this, that, and the other. But very, very talented footballer. Yeah.
I think if it weren't for his knees, he probably would have played for a lot longer and a lot higher. I think his knees give him a lot of problems. Yeah. I think when he signed for Liverpool, his knees were gone then. So
yeah, well, I played with him, Steve. It was against Bristol City when he done his knee, and Bristol City at the time. Did you play at Bristol City?
Yeah, I played for Bristol City.
Yeah, you did, didn't you? Well, in them days when we played them, you had the edge of the pitch, and then there was an embankment all the way around the pitch.
Yeah, I remember.
And he cleared one up the line, and as he's kicked the ball, he was pushed by one of their lads, and he straight-footed down onto the running track off the slope, and you could hear his knee pop. And yeah, he had the operation, whatever. I picked him up from hospital, and that he was crying his eyes out with the pain and whatever. And that's not Dixie. He wouldn't cry for anybody, would he? But he was never for me. He was never the same player after that. He was.
No, I totally agree. When he come back to West Ham the second time after Liverpool, he was still a great player, fantastic, but he lost that little bit of sharpness and that bit of fitness where the injuries had taken their toll. He was still a great player, but if he continued in that fashion, like you said, Jim, he would have definitely probably won double-figure England caps, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, he's like you, wasn't he? He give it everything, every game, and he didn't take any prisoners and whatever. And he did. He lost a bit of something after that knee injury, because he went to Liverpool and he never hit it off. And I thought he had took it by storm, but obviously his knee had a big impact on him at the time, and he just wasn't able to produce the same form.
No, which is understandable after a bad injury, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think as well, loads of West Ham former players that you speak to, loads of people say for that question, it's got to be Julian Dixon. I think that's just a testament to what he did at the club and just how good he was, and how appreciated he was from his teammates for how good he was. And if you put Julian Dixon into sort of the modern day football, if you sort of take the tackling out of it, how good do you think he would have got perhaps in modern day football? And do you think he would have got the recognition he deserved?
Definitely for me.
I don't think I'd survive in modern day football. Because I don't think you can.
He had a brilliant touch, and the pitches were different. We played in heavy pitches. He could tackle. He was great. He could drop his shoulder and come inside, and then he could deliver the ball with his right foot, and he wouldn't have a problem playing. But I mean, we remember there were some games that you play. We used to love going to places that had the better pitches, because even West Ham, Upton Park at the time, some of the games there was hardly a blade of grass in the middle of the park. It was just when we had the downpours and whatever, it was like a big mud patch in the middle. But there was a lot of teams that had good. Ipswich were one of them. They always had a great pitch. Ipswich, Steve, didn't they?
Yeah.
We used to love playing there, and a couple of others. Sheffield United were another one. But the pitches today, Dixie, it had been a breeze for him, I think.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree, Jim. I think Dixie would have took the piss on them sort of pitches that we play on. The only problem is football's totally different now.
Yeah.
And I don't think
he'd be sent off in the first 5 minutes.
as many players back then, including like probably 80% of players that play now, you couldn't do a lot of things you did back then now.
No.
And it wasn't bad. It was only a tackle, a 50-50, a 60-40, a tackle on a fullback, or whatever. A lot of them things now get so punished, don't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, to tackle these days, you've got to be near on 100% certain that you're going to win the ball, because if you're a split second out, you're in trouble. And a lot of the time, you're probably off the pitch.
I agree with you. Ability-wise, Dixie could play any time, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Like you said, Steve, Ian Bishop, Trevor Morley, all them players, Alvin Martin, pound for pound, one of the best centre halves that you could get anywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of great players. They're so lucky, but I just love Dixie, and the fans loved him as well, because he gave it everything he had, and he didn't, it was all about doing well for West Ham, and that was the bottom line.
Yeah, and that's all that to this day, that's all we ask for, that they go out there and they give it 100% plus. Just another question here from Sharky. Sharky says, could either of you taken up any other sporting professions, or were you only interested in becoming a footballer? Jonah, I'll start with you.
I was quite a good sprinter. I won the districts and stuff like that, but really, football was the only thing I had passion for.
Yeah, fair enough. Jimmy, was it all football for you?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I wasn't a sprinter. Steve would have beat me, no problem at all. But no, I was similar to Steve. I came out of non-league. I didn't sign for Swindon until I was 21, nearly 22. So, I played non-league football, and it happened really quickly for me. And within sort of 2 years, within a year going to Swindon, I was in the Northern Ireland squad. So I was literally going from playing Sunday league football, much the same as Steve, to international football, which is a hell of a step up. I look back and I thought, I don't even know how I managed it. I remember walking into a hotel in Heathrow, meeting up with the Northern Ireland team, and this was the year after the World Cup in '82 when they done well. They beat the home nation Spain, and you've got Pat Jennings, Norman Whiteside, Sammy McIlroy, all these top players, and I was that nervous I couldn't even have anything to eat. I was sat in the restaurant just having I think it was a glass of Coke or whatever it was, I was that nervous because of the size of these players sat in front of me. I couldn't even eat anything,
Yeah, and I think just with that, how much football's changed. Would you now, looking back, would have preferred to play football now? And Steve, I'll start with you. Or did you like your career and how football was played now? Would you of course, the money and everything else that's been brought into it? Were you happy with what you had with your career?
Money apart, it's a different game, and you'd have to adjust. If you play football, the players of today have got to adjust. You can't. It's like Steve says, you just can't go out like Dixie. Just couldn't go out and just like whack everybody around him like he used to. He'd be sent off after 5 minutes every match. So you've got to adjust in that, and it's all about your control and positional sense and whether you can strike a ball, and both of us had that. We both played in a centre forward position. Different players, obviously, but you've just got to learn to adjust and adapt. And I don't think that would have been a problem.
Yeah, Steve, would you have preferred?
I loved it back then, but I'd also prefer to play now because they play now with a high press, and that would suit my game immensely. You know what I mean? But like it's different eras, really. So I'd like to play full stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The money's great now as well. I mean, they're very lucky, the footballers nowadays. You know, I mean, they're virtually like rock stars. They're all on 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 grand a week. And as much as they might not say it, it's a hell of a lot of money. And it's a very good career now. So you would definitely, like Jim said, you would adjust. You can adjust. You wouldn't have to put your foot in so much. You know what I mean? You stand up, you defend properly. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to go flying at the tackles left, right and centre. And if you was good enough, you'd have been
even better, Steve, because you'd have been even better if you'd have played today, because you wouldn't have got us kicked as much. Because when you played, which was a little bit after me, you still got walloped by these centre halves and that. But as I say, they can't do that. You can't tackle people these days. Your timing has got to be 100%. You can't get away with it, and that would have suited you again.
But Jim, like you played in the leagues below the top flight as well. When you played in them games on a Tuesday night or whatever, you're going to get a centre half go through you. There's whatever happens, that is going to happen. You know what I mean? So, but nowadays, I think you're a lot more protected from that.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
100%, yeah.
There ain't as much fuggery going on the pitch anymore.
No.
But at the time, you dealt with it and got on with it. You know, it was part and parcel of the game.
Yeah, and nobody really knew different, and that's what it was. Let's say to some more people. Lawrence, hope you are well. Martin, hope you're well, mate. Merry Christmas indeed, Lawrence. Manny's got a question for you, Steve. She says, in the playoff final, we won 7-6 against Sunderland, and Steve was nominated as number 8 penalty taker. How did you feel about that? I can see you smiling.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Really good question. But I've got to be honest with you. Curbs asked me if I wanted to be in the first five, and I said, no, I'm cool, mate. And he went, right, I'm going to put you so-and-so in front of these three people. And I went, yeah, that's fine. And when Michael Gray was walking up to take the penalty, I only took one penalty in my career for Bournemouth. So, Jim, you took a few, didn't you?
Yeah, I used to take him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to be honest with you. My legs were very much like jelly walking up towards the ball. But Michael Gray, so I didn't even have to take a penalty. So
No. There we go, Jimmy. I mean, many people have got different sort of perspectives on penalties, and even just with England, sort of what Ali McCoy said the other day is the second penalty syndrome that Harry Kane sort of had. Did you ever have issues with penalties, or was it just stand up, hit it, back of the net, go?
Well, I tried to hit it high or hit it low. When you hit the ball the right height for the keeper, that's when you're in trouble. When you're hitting it to like sort of the midriff, where that's where the keepers want to dive and save, but they don't. There's not many of them dive up, is there? So I used to try and blast them high as much as I could, and I think that's what Harry Kane tried to do, but obviously he's hit it too high, hasn't he? But I couldn't believe it because he's usually that good,
Yeah.
At taking penalties, and obviously the occasion must have just got to him. I mean, what I do know is, I've taken penalties for a couple of penalties for Northern Ireland, and you think, oh crikey, I'm taking a penalty here for my country. And all of a sudden, you look at the goal and it looks like a matchbox. You know what I mean? And you think, well, where am I going to put this? This keeper looks like massive, sort of thing. But you pick a spot, make sure you. I always used to say to lads when I managed teams, I've gotten at Shrewsbury, we got to the playoff finals and it went to penalties. And I said, pick a spot and blast the ball. Don't be side footing it, lads, because there's nothing worse than somebody side footing the ball and the keeper saving it. At least give the keeper something to work at. And we won the playoff final, won the penalties. So I think we played Dagenham, and they only scored one penalty. Their lads hit at the right height for the keeper. I think he saved two of them, our keeper. But in fact, our first penalty, Luke Rogers, little striker at Shrewsbury, blasted it not only over the bar, I think it went out of the ground. The ball was a bit like a Harry Kane's penalty, but we ended up winning it anyway. But you've just got to pick your spot, keep your head down, and hit it as hard as you can. It's very difficult. It's not as easy as people think.
No, definitely not. Luke says, I would love to see Steve having a chat with Fruit Tray, and just to sort of come off the back of that, when you had different players coming in from different backgrounds, Steve, was it almost crucial that you got to know them? Was there sort of different groups of the squad, or was there just you all just had to get along because you were spending so much time with each other, and everything just had to be fun, and you had to just get on with it with the players that were there?
No, it was great, mate. I think everyone for the whole time I was at West Ham, really, every player really got on. The funny thing about Paolo Food Tray was we used to do a run at Haynall. Jim will remember it. You used to have to stop where there was a big lake, and you used to do 2 warm-up laps of the lake before you went off on the long run. And Paolo Food Tray turned up, pulled up in a stretch limo. The back window come down. He had a big cigar. He threw the cigar out the window, got out the limo in his training kit. We done 1 lap warm up, and then we had another lap. So we done the second lap, all at slow pace, only stretching. He got back in the limo, lit another cigar up, and went.
Brilliant.
That's class.
He's not doing too much running because obviously his knees were shot to pieces.
Oh, that's class.
Hey, the best one I ever seen, Steve, up at Haynall was pre-season. We'd been up there. Billy Bonds was the manager, and he's got us doing all the runs and all that, And then we come to the end. We've done the runs, and then Billy says, "Right, lads," he says, "make your way back to Chadwell Heath. You can go whatever pace you want. If you want to blast it, but go fast, but make sure you don't stop and whatever. Yeah, well, fair enough. And he was a good runner, Billy, wasn't he, Steve?
Yeah, he wasn't
So
bad.
because he set off and he was like in the first 2 or 3, right? And we all ran. It was I remember a really hot day in the summer, July. But all of a sudden, this milk float comes along, and
Dixie.
all we hear is, "All right, lads." It was Dixie and Frank McAvenny on the back, and they were drinking like the orange juice out of this milk float, and we were all like in this steaming hot weather, and they're sat there drinking orange juice in the milk float, and the milkman gave them a lift all the way down to Chadwell Heath.
That's brilliant. Oh, that is brilliant. Lawrence says Dix could take a belly shot. Certainly could. Kent says questions. Steve, West Ham related. What was it like scoring for Charlton at Anfield in that 3-3 draw?
Yeah, that was good. It was one of them good days that I scored last minute to equalise at the top end. So it was a scissor kick as well. So it was quite nice. Well, that's up there, one of my best goals. But so no,
Brilliant, that is.
No, very good, very good. Everybody else having a chat to each other. James, hope you are keeping well. Simon, hope you are well. Of course, our resident Chelsea fan who doesn't, just don't talk about Chelsea, Simon, because none of us are interested. None of us are interested whatsoever. Here he comes, straight away. Favourite memory against Chelsea, please. One of you say you've scored against Chelsea, please.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yes. Well done, Jimmy. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Was it for West Ham?
A good one, actually. We beat them 4-1. Do you remember the Simod Cup, Steve?
Yeah, remember that. Yeah,
it was a quarter-final Simod Cup at Swindon. We beat them. We absolutely battered him. And they had a lot of Kerry Dixon played and Tony Dorigo. Who was the big centre-half that played? Massive he was. Can't remember his name, but anyway, we beat them 4-1, and I got a couple in that game. Yeah,
not Mickey Droy, was it?
Mickey Droy, yeah. He was a massive. He was about 6'5". He was massive. Yeah. I played on the wing that match anyway.
Funny enough, I went to a West Ham promotion when we got promoted in 92, 93, just after you left, Jim, and David Speedy was there, good player at Chelsea as well at that time. Yeah,
no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Top lad. He was on our table. He was top man.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I played golf with him recently up at Blackburn. There was a charity golf day, and he was there, David. Yeah, but I seen him out in the Far East when I played a bit of veteran stuff. When I finished playing, he was out in the Far East, man. Yeah,
lovely guy.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he did when he played, though, does he?
No. Not me though.
He looks completely different now. Yeah, Speedo.
Brilliant. There we go.
Good player.
Many people reminiscing on wins against Chelsea. So thank you very much for coming in, Simon, because it's quite good actually. 4-0 at Stamford Bridge, 5-3, 1986 versus Chelsea. Says Lawrence. Yeah. Very good indeed. Next question: what's your golf handicap?
Who, me?
Yeah, we'll start with you, Jimmy.
What is it, Steve?
22.
22. Yeah, that'll be right.
What are you in? 4, 5,
8?
8. I was close.
Yeah. 8 handicap. Yeah. You don't get many shots. That's the problem. 22. Are you sure, mate?
Brilliant.
Yeah, he's a bit handy, Steve. At 22, I think he's playing with a few shots there.
How about that? I
don't know. Mind you, my clubs are they're in the shed until about April. I think it's too cold.
Yeah, it's too cold.
I'm not a winter golfer, me.
It was nice today. I played today. It was lovely.
Did you?
Yeah. I played.
What was the course like?
Yeah, all right, mate. Spot on. Good. Green. Good. Yeah, the sun was out. It was really nice.
What we need to see up and now is because Jimmy, you had a you had a slight laugh to yourself there. you two in a charity golf day. Do you reckon you've got a chance, Steve?
No chance.
No, there's Mexicans everywhere in them charity golf days, I'll tell
But
you.
if I play after 8 and Jim plays off 6, I've got a chance.
Yeah.
Simon's with you, Steve. There we go. Very good. Question from Sharky. What was Billy Bonds like as a manager? Who wants to start there?
I'll start there quickly. This is a bit of a strange thing, really. But when I signed, obviously, Bonzi, I'd watched him play and all that. But when I actually went, the day I went to sign, my daughter came with me. And Bonzo had a Gucci watch on, which obviously, my mate, he weren't a name person or whatever. I think he must have got it from a testimonial game because they was giving out quite a bit at that time. He just took it off, give it to my daughter, and mate, only to let her play with it because it just showed him like it don't matter nothing to him. You know, what I mean, a bit of gold jewelry, don't matter. As long as, like, he was such a family man, such a family orientated guy that. You know what I mean? He just went, there you go. And they played with it, give it back to him. Job done, mate. Brilliant. Yeah. Oh, I'll never forget that.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I remember when Billy got the job, when Lou McCarry left, and he could have had any car he wanted, Steve. Yeah. And he goes, no. He says, no, I don't want a flash car. He said, I couldn't go around and visit my old mum in a flash car. I'll just have to keep the car I've got. I'm not sure what car he had. I think he had a Ford Granada or something. I'm not sure, but it wasn't a flash car. It was just a normal car. But that was the way he was, Billy. He was just so understated, you know, for the player that he was, and you know, he obviously he just got the job, so he was new at management. So I think it would be unfair of me to judge him on any other manager because it was his first job, you know, and he's taken over West Ham and all that. But he was such a great lad, and he to be fair, he never complicated anything. If you were playing, he told you. If you weren't playing, he told you. The instructions were quite simple, and he used to make me laugh because at the end of the game, if he won the game, he'd come in, he'd go, "Well done, lads, getting a bath." And if you lost the game, he'd come in and go, "Unlucky, lads, getting a bath." That's all he used to say. He didn't sort of go into some managers go into big rant and a rave, you know, particularly if you've lost a game, they'd be chucking stuff about the place and all that. But Billy was just like, he just kept his calm, you know. It probably personified the way he was as a player. He knew what it was like as a player, and you probably didn't need anybody screaming in your ear or whatever. But he very rarely sort of patted you on the back. If he did, you knew that you were in favour. It wasn't sort of the sort of thing that he did. But no, he's a great player, and he obviously got the team promoted and everything. So he done his job well, yeah.
No, brilliant, brilliant. Just I've just come off the back of what Jimmy's said there, Steve. In terms of managers coming in, did you prefer managers coming in after the game, going into detail about things, or would you just prefer just to be left alone to do your thing pre-match and post-match? What did you prefer from sort of managers on a match day?
To be honest with you, the best manager, the best cut of managers, and I'm a bit like Jim, really. I was very early at Bonzo's managerial career, so it was. But Bonzo had so much respect; he didn't really have to say too much anyway. But no, mate, I worked under Alan Kirbyshire and Mel Machin at Bournemouth. They were two great people. And, mate, they knew how to manage people. They wouldn't... I don't think I heard Alan Kirbyshire raise his voice in, like, the 3 years I was at Charlton, you know? So, you know, I don't... There's a lot to be said about screaming and shouting, but it's not for me, really. Like Jim said, I think you can be told... You know yourself. If you've had a bad game, you know yourself. You certainly don't need to be screamed at, you know? So, I prefer, like, Bonzo, the Curbs approach, really.
Yeah. Jimmy, did you prefer that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some managers used to come in and go on and on. I think I had 13 managers in all, but and some were good, some were bad. But you take good stuff off everybody, and you take the bad stuff you just leave out. But it's like Steve. It's very hard to be a manager these days when you sit and talk in front of they're all millionaires, aren't they? So it's very hard to get your point across and all that. And it'd be very, very hard. I'd probably think to lose your ag too much. If you do it too much, I think it loses the effect anyway. But I don't think there was anything wrong. Some of the managers I've had, have come in and. I remember Bobby Saxton at Blackburn. He was a great fella. He's talking about Alan Kirbishley, probably a bit different than Alan. He wasn't sort of quiet all the time. He'd come in the odd game, and if he wasn't happy the way we played, he'd let you know about it. But and I think that's important also, that you do get the manager telling you that he isn't happy. Again, it gives you something to think about. But everybody's different. Must be very, very hard these days to manage players. The way the money side of the game and everything else. You can't afford to do it. I mean, you hear about bust up and training, and everything's in the media these days. We used to have a fight in training all the time, but it was never in the papers or anything. We used to have five-a-sides and kick lumps off each other, and somebody probably hit somebody, not sort of punch him in the face or anything, but sometimes you had somebody lay the boot in you and whatever. But these days you can't sort of blink. Everything's in the spotlight, isn't it? So
yeah,
different.
Jim, don't you think though that when we played, if you didn't play in that first 11 of the first team, you was guaranteed to play in the reserves? But nowadays, if they don't play in that first team or they're injured, they never really get to play a reserve game. They're a little bit too looked after. I mean, you couldn't tackle someone in training now.
No, it's totally different, isn't it? I mean, when I first went to Swindon reserves were in the Conference League, the Combination League, and we used to play Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, all the big teams, and a lot of them teams had first team players either coming back from injury or had been out suspended and whatever. I remember playing Tottenham at Swindon. It was on a Tuesday night, and Glenn Hoddle played. Garth Crooks was up front. They had 4 or 5 first team players, and there's me just come literally from playing Sunday League football, and all the lads that I played with, all young lads that hadn't been anywhere near Swindon's first team. And it was just magnificent being on the same field as that type of player. But that was a regular thing. We go, as I say, I remember playing up at Highbury, and they had 2 or 3 first teamers out. It's fantastic if you're a young player. It's fantastic playing against those players, but the situation's totally different now. You don't they don't have the same reserve leagues, do they?
I mean, my first reserve game for West Ham was Alvin Martin, Tony Gale. I mean, there was 6 top first team players in that reserve team when I played. And mate, to be honest with you, I think that helps you. It helped me.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
Now, I don't think that happens now because they're so worried about them players getting injured, the 80 grand a week players, the 60 grand a week, getting injured in the 23 game or reserve game. I don't think they come back match fit. I think it takes them 2, 3, a lot longer to get match fit than when we play.
Fit,
yeah. That's interesting because nowadays they might because I think it was sort of Bonner that came back from sort of an ACL injury last year, and he played a couple of under 23 games, but it's very rare that you see that nowadays, and it's interesting
which is sad, really.
Yeah, because it leaves players, for example, one player that I do sometimes feel a bit sorry for is Darren Randolph, the goalie that just doesn't get any game time at all. Now we brought in Areola as well. I can't remember the last time he played for West Ham, to be honest. And these sort of reserve games sort of get these players some game time, and I think that's what needs to be sort of brought back into it, just to get
where it's different from our day is that they've got all these sports scientists now, so they monitor the training, and they can tell when you do how fit you're getting as you're going along, and everything's like on a computer screen, and they can
everything's sort of analysed, isn't it?
Fitness,
Everything.
Yeah, they try to replicate the training to what you would probably, how far you'd run in a match, how many sprints you do, all that type of thing. It's all rocket science these days. Yeah.
Impossible for me to be to see that you can get match sharpness, Jim, from training.
No, you can't do that. You can get to a level of fitness, obviously monitoring it, but you can't get. You need to play in a match and get up against people and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's different, isn't it?
Yeah. Last couple of questions coming in. Luke says here, does Steve think in today's academy net he would have got further ignoring injuries?
In academy?
Yeah.
I think the academy is a good thing, but I think now, obviously, my Liam's in the under-17s at the moment. I think it's very hard now for the boys. You've got to go from sort of under 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way through to first year to getting your scholarship, and then you've got to do 2 years. Then you've got to get a pro contract. You're probably going to come up against, probably from under 10 to under 18. You're probably going to come up against 60, 80, 100 players, and you've still got to keep in that top 1, 2, 3 players to be able to play for West Ham. So. It's very hard nowadays. I think it was easy back in our day, even though it was harder to get in initially, but once you was in. But now I think it's harder to stay in because there's so many players.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Scott, I hope you are well. Kent has put a question in. Kent says, most underrated player you both played with, who you think deserves more recognition. Jimmy, I'll start with you.
Well, the most underrated player at West Ham when I played there by a country mile was Kevin Keane. He was such a good player, and for some reason, the fans didn't, take to him a lot, and he used to get quite a bit of stick. But if you look at players and that you want to be consistent in your team, he'd always be the first on the team sheet. I'm quite sure if you ask Billy Bonds that, he'd tell you the same thing. He's very underrated, very understated. Never wasn't loud, right? I already said a word when I was there, the couple of years I was there, but performance-wise, he'd always give it his best. He wasn't short of any amount of skill. He set me up with a couple of goals, I remember at the time, but he was one of those players that never really got any recognition at all, but he worked his socks off for the team. And as I said, he was a decent player.
Yeah. Steve, same question to you. Most underrated player who didn't get enough recognition for you?
Probably, he got a little bit of recognition at West Ham, but probably Trevor Morley, really. I think because he scored 20 odd goals, 18 goals in the top flight, and obviously get us promotion before that as well. And I don't think, not recognition from West Ham fans, but I think overall, really, he was a lot better player than people thought he was.
Yeah. Very good, yeah.
Jimmy, I'll put this one to you first. Ken says, do you think young players should go out on loan more to lower leagues like Frank Lampard, Rio, Jermaine, etc. Did to toughen kids up and get them ready for the first team?
Yeah, most definitely. I think the more experience they get in match time is important. You can play in the under 23s and under 21s, but Steve will tell you it ain't the same. You're running about and you're doing whatever, and if you win the game, it's great. But if you're playing in somebody else's first team in a league, and the manager and the fans want you to win the game and do well, that's a totally different scenario than playing in your club in the under 23s and stuff. So, the more game time they can get, the more experience they can get of playing league games. It toughens them up. It gives them a bigger idea of how to play the game. and you'll find that the players that do go. I remember watching Frank Lampard, in fact, when he was on loan at Swansea City,
I
and
played Bournemouth.
oh, do you? Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
he wasn't anywhere near the player he became, but I'm sure that spell on loan at Swansea City, held him in good stead for getting into West Ham's first team and going on from there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And Luke says here, blonde, tricky, quick. Keane was a bit like me in my prime. What a fortnight. Very good. Very good, Luke. Mandy says, overall, how good was Devonshire? Do you think he got the recognition that he deserved on top of that? Who wants to go first?
Devonshire.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best players that have played for West Ham, really. I think the thing I like to hear about Devo, what obviously I've been told of that, is that his knee injury was horrendous. He should never have played again. Yet he's still got 5 England caps. Yeah. So when people have said that to me, I'm like, he must have been a player.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant. Jimmy,
he's a brilliant player, absolutely brilliant player, and he was one of the players I was talking about earlier. When me and Steve got to wear the West Ham shirt, and he's definitely one of the players that you think, Christ, Alan Devonshire wore the West Ham shirt. You've got a lot to live up to here. There was him, there was Trevor Brooking, Billy Bonds. There's so many good players that have played for West Ham, and Devonshire's right up there. He's top drawer, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's when I spoke to Frank McAvenny last year, and he said Devonshire was the only player that could go out there on those pitches and not have a speck of dirt on his shorts when he came back in. Just the brilliant player that
glided.
Yeah. Oh yeah, completely. And I think he said as well, if you put him on the pitches that you have today, then who knows the player he would have become, sort of in the modern day era. Let's take some more comments. Did Jimmy play whilst Justin Fashanu was with us? Sad story, Jimmy.
No, I wasn't there then, but
no.
Yeah, I didn't. He was there just before I got there, actually, Justin. I remember one or two of the lads talking about him and whatever, but he I don't think he produced the form that he did at Norwich when he went to West Ham. And he wasn't there that long, was he? But he was a good player in his day, and I played against his brother more, and his brother better, Big John, who was. He was a nasty piece of work, but Justin, I don't know too much about, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So just to finish off the playing career section, then just to finish off overall, any regrets that you two have had looking back at your career now? Steve, I'll start with you.
No, enjoyed all of it. Coming to the game late, like Jim. I thought Jim come into the game a bit earlier. But coming to the game, they had obviously got promotion with West Ham. I was in a great escape at Bournemouth. Come back to West Ham, didn't really happen to me, as it does happen sometimes as a forward. And obviously I went on the chart and played in the playoff final, this, that and the other. So for the short career that I had, really 8-9 years, I enjoyed it immensely. And shame I can't play nowadays. I'd be a bit richer.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Jimmy, any regrets?
No, you look back. I've got one or two regrets on when I moved club. I should have made a different decision, but life's like that. It's full of regrets, and you think, well, I wish I'd have done this, I wish I'd have done that, whatever. But much like Steve, I enjoyed it when you come out of non-league football, because Steve obviously worked before he played, and so did I. I used to do 12-hour shifts, and to become a footballer where you're training for 2 hours a day. From doing like 12 hours, like it's you think you've won the lot, even though we weren't paid great money at the time. But you think you've won the lottery anyway. You think you're in seventh heaven. Train a couple of hours a day and then realise that you're a professional footballer. And then, of course, when you get into the first team, you get a bit of recognition, score a few goals. And then I was lucky enough to play in a lot of live games when Sky was first on the TV and all that. It was just fantastic. I had to pinch myself. I couldn't believe it. And it was nothing to do with money then. It wasn't how much you were earning or whatever. It was just the fact that that's what you were doing for a living. To play football, to do something you've loved doing ever since you were a little boy, and you end up, your dreams coming true. And for me, also, I ended up playing for my country. I left Northern Ireland because of the Troubles in 1971, and I never thought I'd ever go back. And I went back about 12 years later and ended up playing for Northern Ireland and Belfast, and it was just. I was crying my eyes out at the end of the game. I couldn't believe that I actually put on the shirt for my country. So a lot of great things to look back on over our careers, and and enjoyed every single minute of it.
Yeah, brilliant. There we go. So just before we do wrap things up, I wanted very briefly to talk about West Ham in current form, because I know both of you both of you take a keen interest to that for sure. Obviously, with the whole World Cup break that's now over, we've got 6 days until we're back on Boxing Day. Boxing Day football. Did you both like that, or would you prefer to be stay at home?
You never had a preference, did you, Steve? You just had.
Nah.
It was just part of it. You just had to do it.
I always used to train Christmas morning. Always.
Wow.
Yeah,
towards the end of my career, we used to have to stay in a hotel the night before to get it away from our families in case we had too much food and all that business. So, it was. It wasn't a problem. It was just part and parcel of it, But. What I do remember is I never actually played that well on Boxing Day all through my career. I don't know why.
No,
I don't think it was down to the turkey or anything. I just thought it was one of those,
Steve, Boxing Day, yay or nay?
No, really. Yes to watch it, no to play in it.
Yeah, fair enough.
When you've retired or that, Boxing Day is quite nice because you'd have a chill out and watch a few of the games on telly. But when you were playing, I'm a bit like Jim, really. I don't think I ever scored on Boxing Day. I bet Jim did.
No, I didn't play well at all, mate.
There we go. In terms of our current form, then have you both got high hopes for the rest of the season? Obviously, has been a particularly fantastic start, but do you both think we can claw it back to somewhere where we were in the last couple of years? Thoughts on the goings on so far?
I think it's exciting. It's a bit like the season starting all over again, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been brilliant. The World Cup's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed the World Cup, and if that doesn't give the players a lift, I mean, and don't forget we've got some players that have been there, Declan Rice and the lad from acquired from Morocco and stuff, and they've all been there and tasted that. So, but the rest of the lads, I think it's an opportunity for them to get their appetite back and go out and like start doing the business, because we're a point off the bottom three, I think. So, we need to get points on the table, on the board, and we need to go out every game we play now as if it's a cup final and try and grind out results and nick results. It's a tough ask. We've got Arsenal, which they're you don't know whether the break will upset them or not, but before the break they were absolutely playing out of this world, weren't they? So it's not an easy one to come back to, I know that, but we've got games coming up that hopefully we should put some points on the board.
Yeah. Are you hopeful that we can do that, Steve, and just come back and hopefully with the fresh start sort of really kickstart our season?
Yeah, I think so. I think the sad thing about it, not sad thing, but I think we had 3 home games. We had the Sunday game, we had the Cup game, Blackburn, and then we had a Palace game, was it?
It was, yeah.
Games. If we'd have won them 2 league games, we'd have been 7th in the table, and we'd still be in the League Cup. But we lost all 3, and obviously now, like Jim said, we're a point off the bottom 4, and we're out of the League Cup as well. So the only thing was we were doing fine, great up until them 3 games. If we'd have won them 2 games at home, we'd have been sitting in 7th place now, and we wouldn't be too worried. So, mate, I think David Moyes has done great since he's been there. I think he'll continue to do that, and I would have thought there's a good result around the corner, pretty sharpish.
No, let's hope so. Let's hope so. And just to finish off, final question then, long the bowling. It says, what do you think of modern football on the whole? We sort of touched on it throughout the show, but do you think football's better now than it was in your day, or do you think, you know, yourself, you preferred it back in your day? Do you think football's progressed for good or for bad? Jimmy, I'll start with you.
Well, it's progressed on a lot of fronts, but obviously it's gone backward in some for me. You know, obviously the pitches and the stadia, everything else it's absolutely superb. I mean, every time I go to the London Stadium, I'm in awe of the surroundings, the stadium, you know, and the pitch. Steve will tell you the pitches we used to play on. I played on pitches that probably never had a blade of grass on it. It was just like sand and everything, you know. So the pitches are playing on everything else. But hey,
Bournemouth,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were like, some of the pitches were like swamps, you know. It's but I wouldn't change any. I enjoyed the time I played. I thought it was blood and guts, and you look forward to the games early in the season when the pitches were better, and then they became better at the end of the season again. But in the middle bit, you know, it was a cold Tuesday night, probably -2 or whatever, and you're running about and you're slide tackling and people are booting you up in the air and everything else. It's just all different, isn't it? It's a different game altogether.
Yeah. Do you think it's progressed for good or for bad, Steve, before we go?
Mate, I think a bit of both, really. Like Jim said, the stadia, the pitches. When we go to West Ham there to do the ambassador thing, you stand and watch the warm up and that. It's like a concert. You know what I mean? There's everything going on. Smoke going off, lights going off. It's so big now, football. And the pitches are great. But I do say football's lost a little bit of characters. You know what I mean? Because you can't run around.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
and getting involved anymore. It's a little bit. I'm so glad I played in the era that I played in, because I do think it's better, because it was more natural then. But now it's become, with the VAR, with the TV, with the I'm a little bit, and the money as well. The money's become stupid, really.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that is fair. I think, however, we will leave it there, boys. Thank you very much, indeed, for joining me. Just before we go, a couple of things I would like to say is tomorrow night we will have our Christmas show. Another ex-Hammer will be joining us. You lucky people, spoiling you at Christmas. We'll have another ex-Hammer joining us tomorrow night during the Christmas show, along with a plethora, a load of guests will be joining us for a little bit of an informal chinwag about anything that anybody wants to talk about. Possibly not football. You know, who knows what might happen. But yeah, thank you very much indeed, everybody, for watching. Steve, Jimmy, thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to speak to you both very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Jake, and a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all our fans and stuff, and to you, Stevie. Have a good one, mate.
And to you, Jimmy, and a good New Year, hopefully.
Let's hope so. Yeah. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you both. And just before we do go, Mark, thank you very much for the £10 donation, mate. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Bring back the music. We'll give you some tomorrow night, Luke. We'll give you some tomorrow night. But yeah, thank you very much, everybody in the chat. Jimmy, Stephen, we'll see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock. Christmas show. Anything could happen. I don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, we will catch you then. Thank you very much. And yeah, let's hope we can pick up 3 points against Arsenal. Who are they on Boxing Day? Let's hope so. Thank you very much. And I'll catch you soon. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, boys. Cheers, Stevie. Have a good one, mate.